Ever since getting into handheld gaming, I've kind of been collecting red handhelds. I don't know, I just love red, and I think they stand out from a lot of the other handhelds that I own in my collection. I also have a red DSi that I picked up in Japan. This was pretty cool. This was actually only about $18. It was in the junk bin, but it looks brand new. I've also collected stuff like a brand new 3DS XL that I bought from Japan. I actually have a video up of this one. It was pretty cool. I liked the transparent red that Retroid had, and of course my Analogue Pocket, with the very first handheld game that I played, which was Pokemon Red. But today, I thought we could take a look at the red TrimUI Brick. This thing looked incredible in video, and the photos looked pretty cool too, so I'm kind of curious to see what it looks like in person. So I thought we could do two things today. I thought we could take a look at the red TrimUI Brick and see what it looks like, as well as actually taking a closer look to see if it's worth buying these pre-set up devices in general. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my review on the TrimUI Brick. I just finished it and it's up on my channel now. So without further ado, let's just open this and take a closer look at the red TrimUI Brick with Crossmix OS. Just a disclaimer, this was sent over from LitNXT. They have no say in what I say in my video. They're not seeing this video beforehand, and of course, all opinions are my own. I just give you guys my honest thoughts to what I think about these. If you're interested in picking this up, this is available on their website. I'll leave an affiliate and non-affiliate link down below in the description if you're interested in picking this up. Right off the bat, one thing that's interesting is they include a brand name SD card. They also sent over a tempered screen protector. This is really good to have. LitNXT also sells these in bundles, so if you're interested in getting something with your TrimUI Brick, it actually works out to being cheaper than the MSRP because it usually knocks about 15% off the price. Underneath that, we of course have the red TrimUI Brick itself. There's a little instruction manual, a USB-A to USB-C cable. There's two different types of bumpers. These are the same bumpers that came with the black model, just in red. Let's take a closer look at the brick itself. This just looks so nice, doesn't it? Wow. When you see something in video, you always wonder, does it really look like that in person? Well, yeah, it does. And wow, does it look nice. I also really love this anodized red metal backplate on this. It looks really good. The triggers look ever so slightly darker than the actual shell itself, and the anodized red metal is a little bit lighter. I don't know, I really like how this looks. I think this is pretty nice. The buttons and D-pad are ever so slightly darker than the actual shell itself. Doesn't look too bad. Let's get the screen protector off and turn it on. Check it out. Which one do you like better? Do you like the colored red one, or do you prefer the black? I think they both look great personally, but for me, well, you know, I'm gonna pick the red. All in all, this is just a really solid looking device, and I really like the aesthetic. I'm gonna go ahead and pop in that micro SD card, and let's try powering it up. That one's got Surwish on it, and I've installed MIUI on my black one. There's a little bit of background music. Let's turn that down. So there's a lot of games pre-installed on here. I kind of like how it looks similar to the stock OS. It looks like there's hacks, modern, other Pokemon hacks, and then of course the games themselves. They all look alphabetized as well. I'm also noticing that this started up a lot quicker than the stock OS, which was kind of interesting to see. The aspect ratio is a little off, so you would have to go into RetroArch and adjust that manually. PortMaster is also pre-installed on this OS. Looks like all these games are pre-installed. It's kind of interesting to see Doom 3 on here. I didn't think that that would run. On the apps menu, there's also things like the OTA update. You can access the ebook reader. You can hop into a random game. You can access the RetroArch here as well. There's a built-in scraper. There's a screen record function. You can use the terminal here as well, and there's system tools. Let's take a closer look to see what's under the system tools menu. This loads us into a different menu where we can access things like the controls, all our emulators, network settings. There's a lot in here. It looks like you can also set the CPU max frequency in this menu too, so basically like an overclock. And I'm guessing you can edit the user interface here too. That's kind of cool. There's a netplay menu, just like on the stock OS, and the settings menu itself. So this does kind of remind me of the stock OS. It just looks a little bit more refined. The settings menu looks pretty similar too. I'm not seeing any differences between this and the stock OS. Looks like there's a few more themes though, which is kind of cool. Some of these look really nice too. This Pokedex one sounds kind of interesting. Let's try that one out. The PSP theme actually looks really sharp on this one too. One downside to this OS that I'm noticing is it almost looks like the OS is stretched, so the aspect ratio is not showing on the screen correctly. I don't know if you can change this in the settings itself. Let's check out the main menu here. So there is a search menu and refresh ROMs, just like the stock OS. It does look a little bit more cleaned up, and it does come with a few different collections as well. Let's check out a few different systems to see if the aspect ratio shows correctly on them by default. Let's try Darkwing Duck, see how that looks. So it does load up the DMG palette too. You get those classic colors, which is really nice. It does look a little stretched too though, so you might have to go in and change the aspect ratio on these. That's pretty easy, just press the menu, go to advanced menu. Once in RetroArch, press B, go down to your video settings, then scaling. Then you can turn on integer scale. This makes it look a lot better on the screen, I think, and I actually kind of really like this black bezel around the edge. It gives it kind of a nostalgic look. It's not bad, actually. I do think it's nice how a lot of the features are already set up and ready to go. The colors look really good too. Game Boy Advance does seem to show up properly with the aspect ratio. So I guess it was just Game Boy and maybe a few other systems. Not bad. It's kind of nice just buying it and having everything set up for you. They've even gone to the trouble of giving you a decent micro SD card for it, which is pretty good. Just look at the color on that screen. Here's something that we should check out. Let's compare this and let's compare that to my Analogue Pocket. The screen on the Analogue Pocket almost looks oversaturated and it's really bright to the point of it blowing out the exposure on my camera. But the one on the TrimUI Brick also looks really good. It also looks extremely saturated. The one on the TrimUI Brick has some screen effects on automatically. I can enable this by pressing the Analogue Pocket button, then pressing right on the D-pad. If I enable the Game Boy Advance SP101 screen, which one do you prefer? This is with both screens on max, and both of these are looking extremely bright and vibrant. If I shut off the screen effects on both, this is just the natural color of the IPS screens. This shows a vastly different look, and the Analogue Pocket almost looks worse compared to the TrimUI Brick. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Zooming in really closely, the TrimUI Brick actually gives you a larger screen to play on. I think this is a very interesting comparison between these two. Seeing them side by side like this, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the bigger panel and the brighter and more saturated panel on the TrimUI Brick? Or do you prefer the more nostalgic panel on the Analogue Pocket? Either way, great panels on both. And this red is really making this game pop. The black levels are also really good on both screens. So yeah, just all in all, really cool, really nice to see in person. This is with the display set to fit, but if I pull this up to integer, it does make the screen even smaller on the Analogue Pocket. Integer Plus will make it ever so slightly bigger, but that's not really much bigger than the regular fit to the screen. It's only making it a little bit taller. It's a slightly different red as well that I'm noticing. This is more of a bright red. This is more of a dark red. I do prefer the darker red. This kind of reminds me of the Pokemon red color. This is kind of in between these two devices, but I think it's closer to the TrimUI Brick. Either way, I don't think you can go wrong with the red or the black TrimUI Brick. It's a fantastic handheld. The black does show fingerprints ever so slightly more than the red one, but because this is a textured plastic, it does resist fingerprints pretty decently. This is about on par with what you see from the Steam Deck because that had a texture to it too. With the red, it's nearly impossible to see any of the fingerprints. Even on the metal, you're not really seeing any of the fingerprints too because that has a soft metal texture to it. As I mentioned in my review, I love the design, but having this nostalgic red color for me personally makes this device even better. TrimUI has just done a fantastic job and I can't recommend this device enough. If you have the Mio Mini and you're looking for a suitable replacement, I think this is the one that you've been waiting for. What do you like about the TrimUI Brick? Do you consider this a suitable upgrade for the Mio Mini or some of these other pocket handhelds? Let me know in the comments below. As I mentioned, if you're interested in picking one of these up, I'll leave a link below in the description. If you have any questions regarding the TrimUI Brick, make sure to ask in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos, and as always, thanks for watching.